Hey everybody, good afternoon. I'm Jeff.
And I'm Chris.
And we are your prepared neighbors and hoping to become your go-to resource for personal and community preparedness. Welcome to episode 7. This is going to be part 2, the continuation of our situational awareness discussion that we wrapped up here in the previous episode. What we're going to do is we're going to now run through a few scenarios. In the last episode, we talked all about just general situational awareness, some things you probably should be considering, things maybe that are good ideas, bad ideas, etc. But now we're going to go and specifically talk about different locations and things you want to keep in mind specific to those locations and those areas. So to kick this off, I want to ask Chris to help us out. There are a couple of words here that are things that I talked about in the Army all the time. They were taught in basic training, and they are skills that are continuously refreshed and discussed on a regular basis. And it's the words cover and concealment. So Chris, if you would take a few minutes and walk us through what the difference is between the two and why it is a critically important thing to consider when in any kind of a emergency, what do you call it? Like a shooting environment or any kind of a knife attack, any kind of a crazy situation that we may come across out in the wild.
Sure. The difference between cover and concealment is considerable. Concealment hides eyes. In other words, you can hide behind something, and that is your concealment. That does not necessarily stop bullets or something else coming at you. Cover not only provides you concealment in many cases, but it also has the ability to stop bullets from reaching you. Understanding is if you're in a situation where there is a shooting going on and you're in a position where you can't run, you've got to take cover. You definitely want to take cover. You want to get behind a cement planter or something that you feel may have the ability to stop a round from reaching you. Concealment is just hiding behind a curtain, hiding behind a sign, but a bullet could go straight through that. And understanding the difference between could save your life.
Yeah, and it's very different when you speak from like a civilian, emergency situation versus like a military application. A lot of times in a military application, you would take the approach of, well, if they can't see me, they can't kill me. That would kind of be the high level mindset. So think about like what a sniper might typically wear in a jungle or desert environment. They're going to put on clothing and additional things that are going to help break up their silhouette and that will make them more and better able to blend into the environment by wearing articles of clothing or additional things that are mimicking the appearance of other things, other foliage, vegetation, even potentially the colors of rocks and dirt and sand and all of that. So it's great to not be seen, but then there's always, of course, on the military side, there's the threat of a grenade, artillery, any type of mortar rounds, actual munitions being dropped from an aircraft. And these things hit the ground and just go everywhere. And that's where the cover component becomes much more important. And again, blending the two, sometimes you can't get one and can get the other. And sometimes, typically if you're able to get cover, that often provides concealment as well. But the reason that we want to touch on this is because it's important you don't have to be a ballistic expert to understand the ways that a bullet might ricochet or bounce or move when you're in the line of fire or near fire. It's just having a basic understanding of what you can get, which one is more applicable given different circumstances, and then being able to discern what you can get now.
And if you're in that situation, you're in the shopping mall, you've got a couple of different directions to run. If you understand the concept of cover, which will protect you, and concealment, as you're looking around, which way should I go? That's cover. Let me run that way. Let me get behind that, as opposed to, I'll just hide behind this. Your level of awareness has probably increased your survivability.
So, and I think that the way you described that was interesting because One thing, and I touched on it in the last episode, and this is something that anyone who has served in a military capacity or, I go back to shooting a lot because shooting is a really great use of this. And it goes back to the muscle memory. When you do something over and over and over again, it gets to a point where you kind of don't have to think about it. Like when I used to teach firearms as a certified firearms instructor, I had to go back and rethink how to teach something to somebody because there was so much that my brain
automatic
autopilot. Like I don't have to think about. Someone would say, "Well, what do you do when you're looking at the sight?" And I'm like, I don't think I look at the sight. So there were things that I had to kind of go back and reevaluate. So Chris says, "Well, hey, I'm looking at this situation. I'm thinking, well, I could go left and I could go right." When things start going boom, 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 the first thing you got to do is just get down, right? Get low. That's going to be kind of applicable, I think, in almost any scenario. But if you teach yourself, how do you teach yourself, I should say?
As you're walking through the mall, just casually observe, oh, that's a planter. That could provide concealment, that could provide cover. So just even as you're walking, and it's not, just paranoia, it's just being aware of your surroundings.
Yeah, and I think so. And mall is number one on our.
And there's an exit. I can run that way.
Yeah, and mall is number one on our list to talk about today. And there's a lot of interesting things with the mall. I think that we touched on a little bit about like some muscle memory and things that you can train yourself for, but you really don't train. You don't go to the mall and train for active shooter situations. You don't say, "All right, family, drop." Okay, you don't go and start throwing fireworks around your family in the mall and tell, no, guys, it's just a training event. Like you don't get that opportunity. But I think what you can do is really, really subtle things that can make a difference. And
going back to your comment on last episode, how do you talk to a young person, your children? What a great way. You're going shopping. Make a game out of it. Hey, what's cover? What's concealment? Could you hide behind that? Without, really getting all serious and making too much of it, but keep it light, but just, again, begin teaching them, hey, that'd be a great place to hide.
So I think, that just speaks to the importance of playing hide and seek as a kid. That's always a good thing.
Oh, yeah.
But I think that if you just look at a really basic thing that you can do, you're walking through a mall and minimizing your profile. So you have an option. You can walk. A lot of malls tend to be divided up in some way or another. It's either one gigantic hallway and people are walking on both sides, sort of wherever they want. But a lot of them will also split and have maybe a big open area in the middle looking down to the level below, and you'll have people walking on the left, people walking on the right. But my mindset is if something bad happens and I'm walking pretty much anywhere outside of like the big open food court area, my mindset is I probably need to get into the first available store that is the closest to me. It might be in front of me, like the flight attendant tells you, the closest store may be behind you, right? So being aware of where you are as you're moving, through the mall, that by itself is huge because something happens, you get low and you, as quickly as you can, get into one of these the stores that's closest to you. Now, the next problem is people, again, going back to Chris's politeness statement, I feel like if that situation happens, I own that store. It is now my store.
I'm going out the back door.
I'm going through past the counter.
Yep.
I'm going into the employee only area. I'm kicking the door in if I have to, and I'm going to get access to that back area, the back door, and I'm heading out. But there are so many. You can make probably a 4-part episode on mall survival, and that's not the intent here. The idea is to just get you thinking about wherever you are. And again, the scenario here, we're talking as a mall, making sure that, because you're not going to be able to think. The thinking is gone. You're just going to be in reaction mode. So if you hear the firing of a gun in your proximity, and it is really, really close, what you do in that situation is going to be different than what you do if you hear it, say 300-400 feet away, echoing through.
People are screaming, everybody's starting to run.
Part of the solution might be like, geez, I heard that come from 300 or 400 feet that way. I don't even see the shooter yet. I'm going to run as fast as I can the other way. That may not be the worst plan, right? And you're not going to have an answer. I'm not going to be able to tell you this is the roadmap and here's a little card that you carry with you. And when there's an active shooter, pull the card out and follow my instructions. It's not going to work that way. So focus on the basics of understanding the difference between cover and concealment. It is highly possible and probable that you could get into any of the stores that are there, get behind a rack somewhere, behind some clothing, make yourself as small as possible, and wait. And just sit there and wait. It's a lot easier when you're just looking out for you. You start having to have, you're out there with 2, 3, 4 kids. You're with a friend and their kids. Now there's 6 or 7 of you. Things start to get a bit more challenging.
Or your elderly mother.
So that's another one. Maybe you're out there with someone who's riding around in a scooter who can't actually walk, and they're out there. So there's a lot of things to consider. And again, it's not today about solving it and giving you the answer. It's kind of giving you the tools to build a strategy that works for you. So next time you go to the mall and you're just wandering around, you're having a nice day, just make note of some things. Say, geez, I go to this mall all the time. I have no idea where even the restrooms are, because the restrooms often have a big long tunnel that has an exit on the other end of it, right? So if you know where that tunnel is, you know where anything of relevance or importance, figuring that out while you're there under a comfortable, ideal scenario is going to give you an advantage if something goes wrong.
And I think just the awareness of what is the difference between the cover and concealment, what can I get behind that would stop a bullet, is huge. I mean, that's just something that you can begin noticing in a restaurant, just walking down the street, anywhere. Doesn't take much.
Raises a good point. You mentioned the planner before. I'm walking, there's a planner. A planner might provide you great cover from direct fire that is right in front of you, but you are out in the open.
Correct.
So how long do you stay there, right? These are things that you unfortunately you can't
situationally
think about.
Dependent.
Yeah, you can't. There's not an answer. And you may say, well, if the person is so many feet away, you should run, and if they're so close, you should hide. I can tell you right now, it doesn't matter. Like literally, it doesn't matter what I tell you, because when that person decides to do what they want to do, you're not going to be able to have a rational discussion with them. You're not going to make rational thoughts. You're going to be 100% in reaction mode. So the more information that your brain has ahead of time, the easier it's going to be for you to formulate just a really, really basic strategy. Don't get elaborate. Think of the basics. Where can I hide? How long can I stay there? Do I have people with me I need to evacuate? Or can I just run like hell and just focus on getting to an exit? Now, the next one we have here, and I think we had store listed, and I think a store and a mall are kind of the same thing in a way, but where it's different is, let's just take a grocery store. I can't think of any grocery store for the most part that doesn't have 1 or 2 entrances at the front. Like sometimes you'll have, a main entrance at the front where all the groceries are, and then there's another entrance like a super Walmart maybe where you have the other entrances, all the, home and garden and some other areas. But a lot of grocery stores are just, the one main entrance at the front. What I would say in a store like that is, again, a traditional single entrance, single exit area store, make sure you know where the exits are. Because if there is some shooting or craziness going on at the front counter, you don't know what's going to happen. It is entirely possible law enforcement shows up and this person starts running for the back. If you're in the aisle that they're in when they're running by, you might have a bad day. So again, do you hide or do you? I'm going out the back door. If I'm anywhere not at the register, I'm going out the back door. If I am at the register, I can't tell you what I'm going to do because you don't know. If they're one aisle over from you, I'm probably low crawling. I'm probably down as low as I can, and I'm trying to crawl in the opposite direction, praying to God they don't execute me on the floor. But hiding is still always a great thing. And, it's a little bit trickier in the grocery store because they've got a lot of things pretty well packed into a lot of those shelves. I think for the most part, your best bet is still to get out that back door.
Agreed.
Well, I've got a note. I'm going to shift to this. Now, we'll keep it where it is because I think it's going to be important. No, we're going to talk about a car. Let's start out with driving. You're driving down the road. Okay, this is one that I really want to talk about because it's important. I, at a point in my life, had some road rage issues. I would just get bent out of shape when people acted like an idiot. And I think part of the problem was me. Because I was looking at this as my world. I'm in this world doing my thing and this person's just an idiot and I can't believe that they would be driving like this and blah, blah, blah. Now, let's say I'm right 90 out of 100 times when I see somebody driving like an idiot. What you also have to remember is you don't know what that person just went through. Somebody, and again, it's not that it's an excuse for them to drive horribly bad, but you also have to recognize that we're all human and we react to things in different ways. I can tell you, like, if I'm out somewhere and I get a call that something is wrong with my children or something's going on at my house, I'm going to speed. I might cut some people off. I might not use my turn signal. I want to get home as quick as I can. So try to calm yourself down and say, look, I don't know what this person's going through, but I'm going to get out of the way and let them go past. I don't know. Don't become a part of their problem.
I think that goes back to something that we've talked about before, and that's the mindset. When I leave the house, do a quick self-check. Hey, am I spun up? Am I angry? Am I off? And then take a moment, take a couple of deep breaths, or at least a single deep breath, exhale, and then get on. Because if I can give somebody some grace, if somebody acts like an idiot and that takes 13 seconds or 5 seconds, whatever the duration is, and I allow them some grace and they go on, I go on with the rest of my day. But if I engage in that, all of a sudden, that could impact the rest of my day. It could impact a couple of hours, could impact the rest of my day. It could impact the rest of my life. And so is that really worth it? I heard something a long time ago that really makes a lot of sense. When I'm on my deathbed, is this going to make any difference? And if the answer is no, let it go.
Yeah.
And those of us with kids, and we were kids once, sometimes we just have a bad day. Sometimes we're just off. We're going through something. And if I can give somebody a little bit of grace and go, oh, whoa, that's unsafe. That's not cool. Whatever. Just go on your way. And I don't become part of the problem.
You know, and that person could be having like an actual mental health crisis. They could be saying, I want to die today. And maybe like a suicide by cop kind of thing, or you just don't know where their head is. And let's say you're a concealed carry holder and you're like, hey, I'm going to defend myself. That means that you are that much more responsible for being responsible. That means you've got to say, hey, listen, I'm carrying a weapon with me that I can use to end life. And I don't know what's going on with this guy, but I don't want to provoke the situation because I promise you.
And you don't want to introduce that into a situation where it doesn't need to be introduced. I mean, that is the absolute very, very last resort, at least in my mind.
Yeah, and I promise you, if I'm driving on the road and things are getting out of hand, I'm going to have the firearm ready well in advance of anybody exiting a vehicle, whether the other person does or whether I do or whatever. But the problem is those things are just going to escalate. If you're in the vehicle, now you take it outside the vehicle. Now you've got two people outside the vehicle. Then it becomes who's going to draw first. Then you've got bystanders. You got to remember, even if you are defending yourself and you are 100% justified in defending yourself, if you shoot and you miss and hurt an innocent bystander, that person is potentially going to lose their life. You're going to jail.
You're responsible for every round that leaves your weapon.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that you were defending yourself. It can.
Well, I didn't mean to.
It can hit your intended target, pass through them, hit somebody else. You're still going to jail, which comes back to using the proper ammo and all your training and all the other things. But the reality is that the key takeaway, I should say, on the whole thing is don't get into things. There's always somebody. If you're a big, bad, tough guy, I promise you there's always somebody bigger, badder, and tougher than you. I also promise you that if you are a big, bad, tough guy, I am not a big, bad, tough guy, but I have really good quality firearms. So I'm going to win, right? In that scenario, I'm going to win. So please just don't even engage. Just let somebody have their day. Let them go about their business and
check your ego.
Now, I want to also talk about something that I see a lot. And it goes back to, it's funny, when I was doing driver's ed in high school, my wrestling coach was my driver's ed teacher because they would also, so it was driver's ed was a part of health, and the PE teacher was also my driver's ed teacher. So I remember part of our instruction with driver's ed, they would tell us to look at the vehicle's tires in front of you, and if they leaned a quarter against the back tire where the tire met the asphalt, you should be able to see the quarter. That would be like a good stopping distance between the vehicle in front of you. I recommend always, when you stop your vehicle somewhere, always leave at least one vehicle car length ahead of you. Use that technique at least of saying, hey, can I see if there was a quarter leaned up on the tire of the car in front of me, the back tire, can I see it? For two primary reasons. Reason number one, somebody is not paying attention behind you or even the car behind them. They slam into them, and now they're so close to you that they slam into you, and you're so close to the guy in front of you, you slam into him. Leave a nice buffer so if somebody does bump into your car, you're not bumping into the car in front of you. But the more important one, throughout history and anytime people want to attack someone, assassinate someone or whatever, one of the first things they like to do is trap their vehicle in between other vehicles. I always prefer, one reason I've always enjoyed having four-wheel drive vehicles is I can position myself next to a median strip or a curb or a sidewalk. And if somebody tries to box me in, I'll just go up and over and go around. But you may not always have that option if you're in a middle lane or whatever the scenario might be. But allowing extra space allows you the ability to say, well, I'm going to have to squeeze in and bump the car to my left or right, but at least I'm not pinned in between the vehicle in front of me and the vehicle behind me.
And again, talking about vehicles, even if you're stuck in traffic, don't stare at your phone. Pay attention to the traffic. Yeah, maybe it's boring. Maybe there's nothing going on. You're just sitting there. Maybe you glance at your phone a little bit every so often, but don't become absorbed in it.
So let's, there's a whole lot, again, you can do a lot of episodes around different things with vehicles and vehicle safety and stuff, but those are just a couple of highlights, right? Making sure your head's in the right space. Don't pick a fight with somebody. Don't get involved in anything on the highway. It's just not worth it. I want to move over now and talk about outdoor events. And it seems like you want to say, well, concerts may not really apply because people aren't really shooting people at concerts, but that's kind of not true. That definitely has happened. So we'll start off with, let's just go with the most recent event here, the Charlie Kirk event out there at the in Utah. I'm always, wherever I am, I'm always situationally aware. I'm always paying attention to things. It's weird because I always take kind of like the Secret Service mindset. Like I get out of my vehicle, I'm looking at what's immediately in front of me that could potentially be an immediate threat. I'm looking left, right. I'm getting deeper as I scan left to right. I hit rooftops, corners, crevices. Like there's always this thing, and I'm hardwired for it now. I don't even have to think about it. I'm just a weirdo like that. But at a concert or an outdoor venue or a rally like this, especially now, you're like, you got to pay attention. You got to be looking around. But let's just assume that you've done all your due diligence and you don't see anything out of place, because I think the reality is that a threat is probably not going to sit in a threatening position long. They're observing from a point of safety or security. They move into a position to engage, and then they move out. My suggestion goes back to kind of like the mall suggestion. Wherever we are, we're going to look around and say, okay, if something goes wrong here, where do I go? And, obviously getting low quick is a good thing, because in this case, there was one shot. If you look at the attempted assassination of President Trump, that was multiple shots. That person kept shooting. Other people lost their lives that day. Get low quick. And then from there, you have to make your determination as to how you're going to move, where you're going to move. When you have a whole big group of people running, I would say that's a good and a bad thing. One of the good things to it is if they're all running and you're not hearing more shots, the probability is on your side that if you get up and run with them, they're not going to be able to target you. They can broadly shoot into the crowd, but they're not going to be pinpointing you. If you're the only one running and they decide to shoot again, I would personally rather shoot at a stationary target than a moving target. And if I'm going to be a target for somebody, I would rather be a moving target than a stationary target if I don't have cover. Again, going back to the importance of cover and concealment. Now, around a university like that, a lot of these places have big cement pillars, and they've got things around that you can take advantage of. But there is no magic answer to any of it. It's following your instincts, following your gut, getting down low, and then determining when to move, if you move. And I'm going to tell you a little bit of a morbid thing here. It's kind of gross, but I want you to use it as something that could potentially save your life if you're ever in that situation. If you are in an area where people around you have already been injured, wounded, or killed, please feel free. If you could ask them, they're now gone, but if you could ask them, hey, do you mind helping me out? Can I use your body as a shield? They would say, I'm already dead. You might as well. Don't even think twice about grabbing a body, pulling it over you, hiding behind it, using the person who's already gone. Well, their life is over, but they can stop a bullet, or they can at least slow it down, redirect it, or something like that. Don't hesitate to use anything at your disposal to protect yourself.
And as we're talking about being prepared, one of the things that I think is really important is what's on your feet. If I'm going to the beach, flip-flops, 100%, barefoot. When I'm driving, I almost always have lace-up shoes. If I'm going to a concert, if I'm going to anywhere, I almost always have lace-up shoes, simply because I want to be able to run and not worry about tripping over whatever because I've got flip-flops on, and then I'm barefoot and I'm running over gravel and broken glass or whatever. So that's just something to think about.
That's hugely important. And that really plays into my day at 9/11. Well, I'll tell that story at the very end, but that does play into what happened on me on September 11th, 2001. And, as we kind of wind down a little bit on the outdoor, rally type scenario, I want you to please think of, or at least consider one more thing that I think is really important. It would be really amazing for you to be the person who provides the picture or the video of the potential assailant, the person who is committing the act. But something, not your problem, right? Your number one goal always, you got to protect yourself. You've got to get yourself to safety. Don't be the person whose camera gets blown up in their face because they're trying to take a picture of the guy who's shooting, okay? Just get out of there. Let somebody else be the hero and get their moment on TikTok or whatever it is. Get yourself to safety.
That's so important because there are other people in your life that love you, care about you, and depend on you. And again, going back to mindset, I'm not going to be a victim. How dare somebody try to take me away from my family? How dare they try to deprive my family of a livelihood? No, absolutely not.
It's weird the way we always try to kind of rationalize, like, I can't believe somebody would do this or somebody would do that. But then you just look at the mental health component of it. Like
the desensitization of, it's almost like the pornography of violence. It's so commonplace, whether you're playing GTA, Grand Theft Auto, or all these other video games, stuff like that. We're surrounded by it. And so what used to be shocking is now commonplace.
Well, and it's the dehumanization of the opposition.
Yeah.
That's what kills me. It's like,
but that's classic strategy.
It's so frustrating because, I
dehumanize the enemy. It makes it far easier to do whatever you need to do.
Yeah. I mean, I enjoy debate. Like, I enjoy the stuff that Charlie Kirk used to do, where debating people, and like,
it makes you think.
Well, I've had people change my mind. I've had people say, hey, look, this is really important, and here's why. And I say, wow,
never thought of that.
Yeah, I didn't, because I have a circle of people that think like me that I spend a lot of time with. So I don't really get that perspective, but that's how you make progress. When you start saying,
getting outside your comfort zone,
when you start saying like, my way is the only way and that's it leads to contempt, and it's terrible. But I just can't wrap my arms around why. So I'll tell you that it's disgusting to me that so many people, I saw a girl did a great video yesterday where she listed like 30 different people who have now been fired from prominent jobs because of what they said. But here's what drives me nuts. There's a lot of people I don't agree with. I'm not going to mention their names here, but there's a whole lot of politicians that I don't agree with on both sides of the aisle. I would never cheer any of their death. Like, there are four of them in particular that I absolutely despise. And I would be really upset if somebody executed them because you know what? Somebody in their district said this person represents us and this is who we want to represent us. And a whole lot of people made that decision. So you know what? If you want to live with that and the policies that they make and everything, cool, that's your decision. Nobody has a right to terminate that. But it's not even terminating that. It's terminating their life. It's not like I fired them. Like that, I mean,
and those people have families, their sons, their daughters, their sisters, their fathers and mothers. So you extinguish a life, there are ripple effects to that.
I just don't see the rejoice in tragedy. It's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. Now, the last one we have on our list, I wanted to mention this one, and it's the one with the outdoor concert in Las Vegas. Like I said, it was about 8 or 10 years ago. And a friend of mine was at that event. She really, really had a tough time with it. There was a police officer friend of hers who was off duty, who was also the coach for her son's football team, and he was killed during that. Now, if you don't know about this or don't remember it, this is where a guy was in the Mandalay Bay. He shot out the window of the Mandalay Bay in his hotel room, and then he was using multiple different firearms that were, loaded up as much as they could be, and he was using what's called a bump stock, which is just a stock that allows the reset of the trigger to happen much faster, giving it very much like an automatic weapon type of performance. This guy basically was firing one, and it was just pop, 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 pop. When that one ran out, he picked up the next one, and he kept shooting. And a lot of people were killed and injured that day. It was an absolute tragedy. In fact, the next day, that happened, I think, on a Saturday or a Sunday. Monday, legislation was supposed to come before Congress to vote on the Hearing Protection Act, which would have eliminated the National Firearms Act requirements around suppressors, which would be a great thing. But that shooting happened over the weekend, and that pretty much ended that. Now, there are a lot of things, a lot of people think that somebody who comes home from combat, that they're just really good. And I don't mean somebody who goes to a foreign country and sits in a tent in a secure area. And I'm not talking about that. I know a lot of people who, air quotes, were in Afghanistan, sitting in Bagram Air Base in Afghanistan. Yes, every now and then a mortar comes in and something happens. But I'm talking about people who are, kicking down doors every day and really engaging in very close quarters combat with enemy combatants. Just because you come home doesn't mean you're good. It certainly helps. Being good and being great at what you do always helps. But combat has a lot of luck involved and a lot of grace of God involved. You can be the best marksman. You can be the best at fill in the blank skill. But sometimes bad stuff happens in combat. A lot of bad stuff happens in combat. When you're in a shooting of a situation like happened out there in Las Vegas, a lot of it's just going to be luck of the draw. I mean, there's just not going to be a whole lot you can do when you have a lot of firearms heading in your general direction. What I do remember from this is a lot of people, there were jersey walls, like those walls that you see on the highway that separate and divide lanes and things like that. There were some jersey walls that were placed out there as barriers. People were able to get down behind those. A lot of people just...
Which is cover.
There you go. You got cover with that to a certain extent. I mean, there are some calibers that are going to blow right through the concrete, but even with that, at least they're shooting at you when some concrete starts blowing up in your area. But just running, just running. A lot of people did that. A lot of people dropped and just stayed right where they were. The only piece of advice, and it's sad to say that some scenarios just don't have a good suggestion, but the only real piece of advice I can give is if you're able to find that cover, great, stay there, stay put. If you're not hearing that very distinctive whistling sound of a bullet going past you, if you've never heard it, you'll know it when you do. It's a very, very distinct sound, and I don't like it. And if you're not hearing that, you're probably better off just to stay put. And the only thing I could give you as advice in this situation, again, we have the benefit of hindsight, because you never know if there are 2, 3, 4 shooters. But the guy was shooting, pop, 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 pop. And then there's a pause for him to set that firearm down, pick up the next one, bring it up, and start shooting again. You might have a 2 to 3, maybe 4 second window to get up and move. But you don't know that, right? You don't know if when he stops shooting, there's somebody else sitting right there ready to take the next shot. And as soon as he's just waiting for somebody to pop up, you don't know. I just go back to trusting your instinct. Try to find that cover if you can. And if it makes sense, to follow the crowd and be just a person in the middle, do the best you can to get in the middle and stay low. Run in that kind of like hunched over position if there's a lot of people around you. And like I said, I don't want anything bad to happen to anyone, but if it's going to happen, let it happen to somebody that's not you, right? Now, the $1 million question in a lot of these scenarios is, Chris and I talked about this earlier, about this feeling and the way we've been taught and the way we've been raised about, hey, we have to look out for others. We have to be, we have to look out for our neighbor, look out for our friend. We have to try to protect those who can't protect themselves. So the $1 million question, should we intervene if we can?
Depends on the situation.
Yeah, so I would say in addition to the situation, I say just broadly, it has to be an individual, it's situational based and it's based on you. Like, I can't just say to you like, oh, this is what you should do every time. And I can't even tell you what I'm going to do because of the fact that every situation, every scenario is so unique. I don't know, but a couple of pieces of advice that I would make is, I remember from the fire service, it was risk little to save little, risk a lot to save a lot. If I'm there and it's me by myself and I can just run out the back door, I'm sorry for the people at the counter that are checking out, that are in the line of fire or whatever. I got to get home. I got a family counting on me. I got to take care of number one. I got to get out. Now my daughter is at the checkout counter and I've gone back to grab the milk that we forgot and she's up there in that area. There's a 0% chance that I'm leaving. I'm going to do everything I can to address the situation. I'm not leaving without her. Now, I would say if I had to put a generic, here's what I think you ought to do, maybe kind of thing, is the only scenario where I'm engaging somebody outside of the one I just mentioned is if they are between me and the exit or me and getting to my safe spot, wherever I'm trying to get to. So if I can make it out the front door, whatever shooting is going on back at the deli counter or something like that, awesome, I'm out the front door. If I can get out the back door, great, I'm out the back door. Outside of that, I don't want to get into a gunfight, but if I have to, then that's what we're going to do. But what I want you to keep in mind, and this is really, really important, somebody somewhere is calling 911. Hey,
and you're running around with a gun.
I'm in the grocery store. There's some shooting. Something's going up near the register. And now here's Jeff trying to be a hero. So I come out, I draw my firearm, and I'm like, man, I got the drop on this guy at the register. He doesn't even know I'm there. I'm going to be able to get there. And then somebody, the next aisle over, sees me and goes, oh, this is his buddy. They take me out. Or law enforcement shows up, and then they snuck in the back door. I didn't even know. Oh, this must be one of the other guys. Boom, they take me out. So while you're trying to help, you can actually, one, put yourself in grave risk, and two, become a part of the problem. So I would really encourage you to be very, very careful at this idea of I'm going to be the guy who draws and I'm going to save the day. Now, if I'm in line and the guy right in front of me pulls a gun out and I have no way to do anything else, then you might have to just grab. You might have to grab for the gun. You might have to try to take the guy out. I don't know. Your instincts are going to tell you what to do. I can tell you all day long, reach here, grab this way, turn left, turn right. Doesn't matter. You are going to respond the way your body tells you to respond and run with it. If your body tells you to run, then you just run like hell and keep going. If your body tells you to fight, then just fight like hell.
And that goes back to training, because in a really, really high stress situation like that, all your fine motor skills are shot. It's just gross motor skills. And so you will always fall back to your level of training. If you are a concealed carry, then unless you are really, really well trained, be very, very careful, because there's way too many people out there that have their concealed carry, and I'm 100% Second Amendment. But if you are not properly trained, you're nothing more than an active shooter. Because if you have no trigger control, if you cannot accurately put rounds on that target, then you are endangering other people's lives. And so that's just something to think about. And I'll never forget, I think it was in probably the first concealed carry course that I had, when a situation was depicted where there was this, let's call him a bum, had a gun and he was pointing it at somebody, and the guy was sitting on the ground, and this disheveled looking guy with a gun was pointing it right at him. And the question was posed, okay, you're a concealed carry. What would you do in this situation? And there were a lot of different answers. And then the instructor said, all right, well, what you didn't know is that bum, the guy that looked like he was up to no good. Yeah, he was an undercover cop. And you just shot him. So again, be very, very careful.
Yeah, that's a great point. And it happens all the time. You have off-duty law enforcement. They're at the grocery store too, right? They got to get their groceries, and they could be the perfect person to solve the problem on the scene. And here you go, getting things mixed up.
So it really is situationally dependent. Just make sure your ego is in check, that you're properly trained, whether it's you have some. And the thing is, most people are not going to get into a conflict where there's a gun involved. It's far more common that you're going to have a physical altercation. And so your open hand skills are very, very, very important. Be able to protect yourself, be able to protect others around you, your family members and whatnot.
Absolutely. You always got to focus on getting you and your people out safely. All right, everyone. So remember that you have to be your number one first responder in all cases. Like, nobody cares about you and your family as much as you do. You have an obligation to become educated and to learn how to do whatever is necessary to keep them safe. Now, what that looks like to you may be vastly different from what it looks like to your mother, your brother, uncle, sister, or anybody else. But as they always say, failure to plan is planning to fail. Whether it's a handgun, knife, taser, pepper spray, whatever that looks like to you. Now, I know that a lot of places you may travel, visit, or even live don't want you to be able to defend yourself. Now, my suggestion in those situations are to move or to not visit those places because, as I stated, nobody, especially the politicians who make these crappy disarming laws to keep law-abiding citizens unarmed, they don't care about your safety. If you think they care about your safety, ask Irina Zarutska, the young lady from Charlotte, North Carolina. Ask her about that. Oh, wait, you can't because she's dead. So make sure that you're looking out for yourself. Go to places where you're welcomed. Always be paying attention. Be aware. And I'm going to wrap up today with just my 9/11 story. It's not super crazy or wild or anything like that. But if you want to hear it, stick with us. If you don't, we'll catch you on the next episode. But 9/11, September 11th, 2001. At the time, my wife and I we had a daughter about a year and a half old, my first of three. And we were in Woodbridge, Virginia. And I was working in the intel community at this time. And I worked up in Reston, Virginia. And that's kind of a western suburb of D.C. Now, this particular week, I was taking training in Roslyn, Virginia. So if you're not familiar with Roslyn, it's over kind of close to like Arlington National Cemetery, kind of on like the western side of D.C. If you know where the Jefferson Memorial is, take the bridge. The Teddy Roosevelt. Take the Teddy Roosevelt Bridge across the Potomac River, and that will drop you into Roslyn, Virginia. It's right there on the river basin on the Potomac River. So I was taking training that week. It was a 20-story building. I was on the 10th floor. And what they have in the D.C. area is these lanes that are called HOV. It's high occupancy vehicle. The whole idea behind this is to encourage people to commute and to carpool and to reduce the number of vehicles on the road. So if you have 3 or more people, you get to ride in these special lanes. Well, I was doing this training in Roslyn, and I was going to take the metro, which is the DC's version of the subway. So my wife and daughter got in. We all got in the car together, so we'd have our 3 people, and they dropped me off at the Springfield Metro, which was about 10 miles south of DC. So I take the metro all the way up into the DC area. The blue line of the metro actually goes right underneath of the Pentagon. There's a stop for the Pentagon, so if you work there, you can take the escalator and go up the escalator and directly into the Pentagon. And if you show your badge, you go to work. So I went 2 stops beyond that to Roslyn, and I went into this facility and did my training on Monday, regular day, and then went home. So Tuesday morning, 9/11, My wife drives me up just like she did the day before, drops me at the metro, and I get on there. Same trip as the day before. And at about 8:45 in the morning Eastern time, I roll up into this room, and there were about 20 of us taking this training. And I think about 8 or 10 people were in the room. Training started at 9 a.m. I was there about 15 minutes prior. And as it's getting closer to 9, this guy comes in and he says, "Hey, we're going to be a little bit delayed getting started today." And I didn't think much of it. And he says, "Yeah, there's a incident that happened. There's a plane that hit one of the towers at the World Trade Center in New York." And as soon as he said that, I immediately went to like, oh, it's like a little Cessna, like a small little 4-seater or something like that. And I didn't really think anything of it. So I'm on this desktop computer. I'm checking mail and just searching around some things that are going on. And a little while later, the guy comes in and he's like, "Hey, we're going to be canceling training today. We're shutting it down. A second plane has hit the other tower." And right when that happened, I was like, okay, this is not an accident. This is the real deal. This is a pretty serious thing. So I immediately, in my mind, I started thinking like, okay, well, like what's next? This has to be, is this just isolated to New York? Is this going to be something that impacts other areas? Like what's going on here? I wasn't like in full panic mode or anything, but I was definitely getting concerned. And class was canceled. I thought, well, geez, what am I going to do? So I kind of hung out for a little while. I was reading some information and just kind of taking it easy. It wasn't more than, I'm thinking it was like about a half hour or so after that decision was made to cancel classes. And I heard the Pentagon's been hit. And I'm roughly about 3 or so miles away from the Pentagon at this point, 3-4 miles. And as the crow flies, and I'm thinking like, oh crap, now it's really on. It's going. So my mindset went into soldier mode. I've been out of the Army for about 1.5 years at this point, and I'm like, okay, I'm about 22, 23 miles from home. I've got to figure out a strategy to get home. So my first thing is obviously I'm going to go get on the metro and I'm going to go home. But the metro runs under the Pentagon, and I'm sure it's going to be closed, which we very quickly confirmed that the metro was shut down. So I thought, okay, I got to make a plan. I got to figure out how I'm going to be walking home, basically. So I remember that there was a CVS drugstore in the downstairs area of the building next to us. So I thought, I'm going to run down to CVS. I'm going to grab some, I'll buy a bag. I'll throw some food and some stuff. I want to get some moleskin. So for those of you who aren't familiar with moleskin, it's a good, like a footwear kind of material that you can put on to, like if you get some blisters or whatever, you can put some moleskin around the blisters and it allows you to just keep on going. It was a great thing we used all the time in the Army. And I thought it might come in handy, but I had standardized on a 3/4 height, like hiking boot that I used to wear all the time. And I was wearing them that day. I was very thankful that I was. So I went down there and there's a sign on the door. It says closed national emergency or something like that. I was like, oh crap. And I was like, I need a rifle. So I went inside and started looking through they had a phone book there. I'm looking through the phone book and I'm trying to find the local gun shop. And I call them like, hey, listen, I need to stop by. And they're like, yeah, we're closing. And I was like, they were like 2 miles down the road. And I was like, can you wait for like a half hour? And the guy's like, no, we're shutting down right now. So I was like, okay. I thought, if nothing else, if I've got a rifle, because I really didn't know. I didn't know if there was what I expected or what I thought would happen would be random people would just start showing up in public places shooting people. That's kind of the expectation I had. I figured it was going to be some kind of terrorism related thing and there would be multiple people and it would just be happening all over the place. I didn't expect a foreign invasion like a Red Dawn type of scenario, but I definitely thought there was going to be more. So the gun shop is closed. I thought, all right, well, maybe I can call a bike shop because if I can hop on a bike, you can do 20 miles in no time. There is a bike shop right down the road. And I call them like, hey, I need a bike. And they're like, no, we're closing. We're done. We're going home. And I was like, I will run. Like I will sprint. I will run there. Like, but I need to have a bike. I got to get home. And they're like, we're going home right now. Sorry, man. So they shut down. They were gone. So I was pretty much out of options. So I'm in the upstairs area of this, again, on the 10th floor of a 20-floor building. And I was like, I got to go outside and get some air. So I go downstairs and I walk around. Well, I take that back. I was upstairs and I walked out in the hall because I wanted to go downstairs. And the way the building was set up, you take the elevator shafts are kind of in the middle of the building. And when you step out of the elevator, you have an elevator across from you. And then both left and right will take you directly into office space. So as you came up the elevator, let's say you're on the right side was where I was. Well, the opposite side of the hallway was the side that would be like on the Potomac River side. So I glanced over into that office space a little bit, and this guy walks by, sees me looking in. So he opens the door. He goes, "Hey, you want to take a look?" And I was like, "Yeah, if I can, that'd be great." He goes, "Yeah, come on with me." So this guy has a corner office. He takes me all the way to the back corner of this office, and we're staring right at the Pentagon. So all the smoke and everything is rising up into the air. And I'm thinking like, oh crap, man, this is the real deal. And so I stood there for probably maybe a minute, just taking it all in. And I was just like, oh man, this is not good. So I said, "Hey, thanks, man. I appreciate you showing me this. I got to get going." So I took off. I went downstairs, and then I walked towards that, like, I guess towards the Pentagon, but there was an overpass that I saw. I just wanted to get kind of a ground level view. And there was a glass truck, like a van that would carry panels of glass on it. And the guy had the side door was completely open. And there were like 3 or 4 people standing around it. The radio was playing, and it was Katie Couric was on the radio, and she's, I guess, on the Today Show or whatever she was on, but she was on the radio in New York talking about all the stuff going on up there. So I'm facing the van, listening to her tell the story. And then I'm like looking over my left shoulder and watching the Pentagon burn, and then looking back, listening to her, and then looking over my shoulder. And after about 3 or 4 minutes of that, I was like, I got to get moving. I can't stand here. So I go back in, I go upstairs, and the guys who were back in that office area were still telling me like, "Yeah, man, we just heard that there's a 4th plane." And they're saying that they're not sure where it's going. They don't really know all the details, but they think that it might be targeting a larger building. Now, in DC, there's no buildings taller than the Capitol. Now, in Roslyn, we don't really have what they call skyscrapers, but there are very tall buildings there. I was in one of the taller ones. And I remember hearing somebody mention the USA Today building. I don't know what that means. I never did any research on it. All I knew is I'm in a tall building. I don't want to be in a tall building. I'm leaving. So I was talking to this guy in my class, and I just told everybody, I was like, "Hey man, I'm going to jam." I remember they had like fruit. They had like bananas, apples. They had a big, like a centerpiece on this table that was loaded with Jolly Ranchers. And I had a container. I don't remember what it was, but I had some kind of a container. Maybe it was something I took my water or my coffee in with that morning or something. I really don't remember. But I know that I had about 16, 18 ounces of water, and I thought that'll be enough. I just got to go 20 miles. So I grabbed these 2 plastic bags, like grocery shopping bags, and I threw a banana, a couple apples, orange, a handful of Jolly Ranchers. Oh, they had the oats and honey. I think it's Nature Valley oats and honey granola bars. So whatever they had laying around this little snack area, man, I loaded it up and got it all into my bags. And I told the guys, I was like, "Hey man, I'm going to go for a walk, but you guys be safe, man. I wish you the best of luck." And this one guy said, "Hey, I'm going to leave in a few minutes. I live down near Landmark Mall," which was probably like about maybe 6 miles or so away, 6, 8, well, probably 6 miles south of the Pentagon, so maybe 8 or 9 miles away. And he says, "I've got a bike. How about you come with me? I'll give you my bike, take it home, and just get it back to me whenever you can." Now, I've never met this guy. I don't know the guy from Adam. But again, everybody's in a tough spot. We're all trying to look out for each other. And I said, "Man, that would be awesome." Well, this other guy says, "Well, hey, I'm trying to head south too. Like, can I go with you?" And he's like, "Absolutely." So we go down, we hit the garage, get in his car. We're on our way out, and we're moving. I was really surprised. I was thinking it was going to be gridlock. We're not going to be able to get out of there. We're driving, and we probably go 4 blocks, like straight, left, right, straight, boom, gridlock. And it was like, oh crap. we sat in one place just listening to the radio for about 10 or 15 minutes. And then, like I said, it was maybe around that 12, 15 minute point. Person comes on the radio and they're like, hey, the blue line of the metro just opened. And I said, hey, man, I appreciate your offer. I'm going to go jump on the blue line. He's like, nope, I get it, man. You guys be safe. So me and this other guy take off and we're moving pretty swiftly to the metro. We get on there. I mean, we're packed in like sardines. I mean, it was just wall to wall people. But we get in, we make the 25 minute trip to the Springfield Metro. And there's this thing in the DC. Well, I know it was in Northern Virginia. I'm not sure about the rest of the area, but there was a thing that was really popular in the late 80s, 90s. I think they're still doing it today, called slugging.
Yeah, the slug line right outside.
Yeah. So what this is, for those of you not familiar with it, you'd have different areas like congregating points where people would say, hey, I want to drive my car and I work at the Pentagon. And you'd have other people who say, I want to go to the Pentagon. I don't want to drive my car. But remember those HOV lanes we talked about earlier? You would go to these meeting spots and you would just pull up and say, hey, I need 2 for the Pentagon. And the next 2 people in line who were heading to the Pentagon would be like, we're going to the Pentagon. They hop in the car. You go together. Well, this slugging to take advantage of HOV became popular not only going into work, but also coming home. So I get off of the metro and I walk across this pedestrian walkway, over the tracks and everything. And I'm coming down the escalator and there is a guy at the bottom of the escalator and he holds up a sign. And he's like, I'm looking for people going to Woodbridge. And I was like, it was like the hand of God just dropped right in front of me here. So I raise my hand and I say, I'm going to Woodbridge. This guy right behind me goes, I'm going to Woodbridge. He's like, great, let's go, guys. And I'm like, wow, that was perfect. So the 2 of us go with this guy. We get in the car, we're driving, we're just kind of chit-chatting. We're in the HOV lanes. We're going past all the traffic. And he says, well, look, where are you guys heading? He's like, I'm going to this, approximate area or whatever. And the one guy says, well, my car is parked at the Prince William Parkway commuter lot. And I said, well, that's perfect. Like, you can drop me off there. That'll be great. Because when I was a kid, I grew up in the woods just behind that whole area. It was probably maybe 2 to 3 miles away from that lot. But we roamed that whole area as a kid. I knew those woods like the back of my hand. So I just said, yeah, that lot is perfect. So we pull up and the guy says, yeah, where's your car? And the guy's like, oh, yeah, it's right over here. And we drive up and the guy gets out. He goes, okay, well, where's your car? And I'm like, you can just take me to the corner of the lot right over there. I'm going to walk. He's like, what? I said, yeah, just take me to the corner. I'm going through the woods. And he's like, where are you going? I said, don't worry, man. I grew up in these woods, man. I know the whole thing. I'll be home within an hour. And he goes, I really don't mind taking you home. And I was like, all right. So we go ahead and make the 12, 15 minute drive or so to get back to the neighborhood. He gets me to about, I don't know, within like about 3/4 of a mile of my house in the neighborhood. And I was like, hey, man, this is far enough. This is great. I really appreciate it. He lets me out of the car. I make the 10-minute walk home from where I was, and I was there. So I got to the house. My wife was fine. Everybody was fine. I couldn't get a hold of anybody. The phones were messed up all day long. I couldn't call her and let her know, but I made it to her. My godfather and my god family live in New Jersey. My godfather used to work in one of the trade center buildings. So I'm trying to get a hold of the family to make sure he's okay. It turns out he was okay, was no longer working there. The real big blessing for me is that I think it was around the year 2000. My mom used to work at the Pentagon, and they decided they were going to do these big renovations in the Pentagon. So what they did was they took her office and all the people within that area, and they moved them just right next door to the Pentagon in Crystal City, which is right near Reagan National Airport, and they put them up in office space over in Crystal City. Now, the plan was to renovate the entire Pentagon, but instead of renovating her office and then bringing her back, it was just cheaper to renovate her office and then move the people nearby into her old space and just keep everybody else rotating within the Pentagon. And then, 3, 4, 5 years later, bring her office people back last. So the plane crashed at her office, basically. So that was the huge blessing for us, is that she was not there when that went down. Now, obviously, other people were killed that day, but she made it out. So that's my adventure for the day. It was pretty wild. It was crazy to get home and, clear blue sky, beautiful sunny day. And it was something else, something to remember for sure. All right, everybody. So that's going to do it for our 2-part series here today. If you enjoy what we're doing, please tell a friend, rate the podcast, and subscribe to be notified of new episodes. If you'd like to catch up with Chris and I or have something to share, want to suggest a show or a topic, just reach out to us, info@preparedneighborspodcast.com. And as always, don't be scared.
Be prepared.
We'll see you next time.